I made a new website on interreligious studies, but what is interreligious studies? Let's talk about it. This is 10 on Religion. Hey peeps, it's Dr. B with 10 on Religion. It's early 2021 and over the winter break from school, I decided to learn basic HTML and CSS, the backbone of website programming, just for fun. I developed a new website called Interreligious Info to see if I could do it. It was a little challenging, but I was able to produce a simple website about interreligious studies, which I hopefully can grow in the future. This vlog is going to be a brief overview of the history of interreligious studies over the past 50 years or so. I split this up into 3 main thematic areas, but before I get to those, some quick background. First, it's a little difficult to provide an overview of the contemporary history of interreligious studies from the mid-20th century to the present without leaving out a lot of the story. Yet, there are a number of important sub-movements, figures, and landmark books which can be highlighted in order to demonstrate the big picture over time. There are also ways to tell the story differently from the perspective of many of the major religious traditions, but that would take a nearly Herculean task to assemble, so we're not going to go there right now.
I am so confused.
In Western history, specifically Europe, one could trace the hints of questioning near the start of the modern philosophy era in the late 1600s with Spinoza's writings, but it really didn't get off the ground until a guy named Schleiermacher in the early 1800s. This line of thinking continues into the early 1900s with Ernst Troeltsch, an important early figure in world religion inquiry with his long-titled book, The Absoluteness of Christianity and the History of Religions. Finally, from the late 1960s to the 1980s, the hermeneutic philosophers Hans-Georg Gadamer and Paul Ricoeur significantly widened the door to new methodologies of explaining interpretation. With that in mind, the 3 thematic areas we're going to highlight are religious pluralism, theology of religions, and comparative theology. Religious pluralism's heyday, so to speak, was from the 1960s to the 1990s. 4 of the key players in the religious pluralism movement were Raimund Panikkar, W.C. Smith, John Hick, and Paul Knitter. One could also add John Cobb Jr. to include a process theology model, but that is more of its own tangential niche, which also later led to the open and relational theology paradigm. Raimund Panikkar's The Unknown Christ of Hinduism and The Interreligious Dialogue were 2 books which established the importance of the internal-external character of interreligious understanding. W.C. Smith provocatively stated, "We, Christians, explain the fact that the Milky Way is there by the doctrine of creation, but how do we explain the fact that the Bhagavad Gita is there?" The Bhagavad Gita is a key Hindu text. All who are interested in the history of interreligious studies should especially read his Meaning and End of Religion, which describes his idea of a cumulative tradition. John Hick's Copernican Revolution in Religion decentered specific religious reference such as Allah, God, or Brahman for more neutral terminology, while Paul Knitter put the focus on praxis. How do we live out religion? In all of these efforts, the issue of what is truth and where is truth became a key concern. The second thematic area is theology of religions, which was popular during the 1980s and 90s. The religious pluralism movement continued, but it was overlapped by more of a theology of religions approach. How was a religious adherent supposed to view an adherent from another religion? Religious scholars try to develop ways in which to describe the possible options for interpreting other religions from the standpoint of their own religion. In 1983, Alan Race published Christians and Religious Pluralism, which defined what would become a very popular model of categorizing religious relationships: exclusivism, inclusivism, and pluralism. Later, in 1995, Mark Heim wrote a landmark work, Salvations, Truth and Difference in Religion, which critiqued John Hick's and others' views while countering with more of a perspectival depiction of religion. Were the meaning and truth of religion relative to culture? Several challenges emerged, such as the nature of religious communities and institutions, the doctrinal dimension of faith, and the social and political aspects of religion relating to public platforms and power dynamics. This particularly became clear through Diana Eck's popular work, A New Religious America, exposing and inquiring how the diversity of religion had affected and changed American culture. All of these ideas led to the further wedging of such opposing categories as individual and community, diversity and uniformity, liberalism and conservatism, and the public-private divide. The third thematic area is comparative theology, which came to the forefront in the 1990s and has continued into the 2000s. It's a way of explaining and understanding interreligious studies, which arose largely through the work of Francis Clooney at Boston College, now Harvard, along with James Fredericks at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. Comparative theology abandoned the idea of one religion entirely explaining another religion through its own lens and narrowed the focus considerably. Instead of taking on the largely impossible task of comparing two cumulative traditions over millennia, one could rather focus on one small aspect that one finds in common, such as Mary in the New Testament and the Quran, or forms of prayer and meditation in Judaism and Buddhism. The goal is to gain insight into oneself and one's understanding of one's tradition by learning from another tradition through such specific data of investigation. Yet, it did not end there. Many of the previous themes and figures from prior decades still remained active. Robert Neville from Boston University produced a philosophical theology which continued the ideology of Paul Tillich's ultimate concern framework from the mid-20th century. Perry Schmidt-Lückel at the University of Münster in Germany continued to refine John Hick's model through his fractal interpretation of religious diversity. Catherine Corneille at Boston College has continued as an important leading expositor and interpreter of nearly all models of interreligious studies. John Tatamano from Union Seminary in New York, through hard work and his sagacious wit, has created a hybridity of Clooney and Neville's work. The element of practice has not gone unnoticed either. Interfaith scholars and movements abound all over. Marianne Moyaert in Amsterdam is an academic leader in interfaith rituals and participation, while Ibu Patel's organization based in Chicago, Interfaith Youth Corps, focuses on educating interfaith leaders on college campuses and beyond. Finally, Jerry Martin has initiated a yet further method to pursue interreligious relations labeled transreligious theology, where the starting point can be any religion, more than one religion, or no religion at all, such as the SBNR movement, spiritual but not religious. I realize this is kind of a laundry list of people and ideas, but at least it gives you an overview of the diversity of thought taking place in interreligious studies. As the field of interreligious studies grows and expands, new faces and ideas will further shape how the interaction of religious adherents interpret and understand both each other and the wider scope of their religious traditions. Now go check out all the resources at my new website, interreligiousinfo.com. The next episode, we're going to get into a somewhat provocative subject, the origin of the Jews. I hope this vlog has helped you better understand this topic. Until next time, stay curious. If you enjoyed this, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is 10 on Religion.